starting now. We're starting now because Jen does not have control of her laughter. Season 4, episode 5. Perfect time to start, I think. When you have zero control.
Yeah, always. I wish sometimes we would record straight away when we come on a call, because we end up talking about the great topics, going into stuff, and then veering over to something else in the episode. And equally, I started with a hand movement to get us going today. Yeah.
Anyway, how you doing? How's your week been?
Oh, it's been great. We're getting closer to pre-season. So I'm back kind of in the churning mode, but we're not in kind of work mode yet. So I kind of have some time to play around with some ideas. And I took, some breaks. I was thinking recently, here I go now, taking us off topic, but very briefly, I was thinking about self-care. And we had to make like a contract. So we did Rome for a couple of days where it was go, go, go. But we had to make like this mini little contract between myself and my wife before we went, to say that when we go to the second place, which is Greece, we would do nothing. And it was really hard. And I don't know if that was self-care mentally and physically for me compared to what I have access to here and how I manage it. So I was thinking about this idea that, is self-care a privilege? Like, was it a privilege to be able to go on holiday, to give myself that switch off the phone? Was it a privilege that I'm in a role that's there when I go back? That I feel I don't always have to prove myself in it, although I aspire to do great stuff in there. Is there something around the boundaries that people are suggesting we set with our managers to say, I want to work a 4-day week, or I want to take a half day? Now, some companies like UK Coaching are brilliant, but what about those people who aren't in that space? And maybe I'm going to be really presumptuous here, but like, what if you're new into that space of coaching and you feel like you need to spend many hours showing what you can do? Or for females who are in a space where there's, a lot of people who maybe don't believe in their ability, do they feel like they need to work longer and harder and faster? So is the self-care window really, really small? That's what I've been thinking about since I came back from my holidays.
What did you find harder about getting yourself into that space? You said you found it difficult. What was hard about it?
I find I always need at least 2 days where nothing has happened the day before. I haven't traveled. I'm not worried about anything, to just relax into the nothingness. So I didn't have to think about food. I didn't have to think about, what I would read, where I would go, who I would speak to. If I had to be somewhere, it was just being very present in that moment with myself and my thoughts. And that's what I found hard, was getting to that point and then saying, when I said, let's do nothing, and Em was saying the same, yes, let's not book an excursion or deep sea dive or get a speedboat, that what does that conversation look like when I come back here? And it just got me thinking about the 5 ways to well-being, the mindfulness that we speak about. How much of that does a person need to get to a certain point to do? Or actually, can we do it? And there's just a multitude of different ways that people can look after themselves. So some pieces are making sense and not making sense, but the self-care thing is important. And we are going to speak about that as a staff next week, where our wakeful rest, where our days off are, what the day and structure of the day looks like. So yeah.
What are you like at switching off when you get home?
Brutal.
What does that mean?
Awful. So right. I know what to do, and I use the drive on the way home to kind of tidy up my thoughts, reflect on the day, leave myself a voice note of stuff that I either want to get back to, or interactions I've had, how I kind of coped with them and what I might need to pick up again. But I'm excited about my role. So the switch off part is when I get home, I want to share the day. So the day stays going on. And then we might sit down and we might have dinner, we might go off for a walk with the dog, and Em might talk about her work. And we're kind of still in that kind of what if curious mode. And then we might sit down and watch something, like we watch Glow Up, and it's the final, I think this week, if not tonight. So neither of us are massively into makeup, but it's about kind of different types of makeup. But what I'm really interested in is I sit and I watch that, and it's something completely off topic to what I like and am involved in. but the feedback that they give is sometimes really harsh. So I think about, we talk about generating feedback and understanding language and relate. And sometimes they're like, that is not good enough. And I'm like, whoa, what if that was said in a sporting environment? Who says this anymore? How do they frame it? And that's a show, and I know it's edited, and so they do celebrate as well. But anyway, the point I'm making is that's a thing that draws me back into work again. And so, yeah, I think it links, you've heard me say before, I think it links to my kind of dissatisfaction with the work-life balance term, because actually it blends in and I don't fully switch off, but I have an opportunity to enjoy the curiosity around different elements. And then the switch off sometimes just looks a little bit different to others, I think what I am good at recognizing is when I'm getting to the overwhelmed stage. I know kind of what happens in my body. I know the thoughts that come through when I think you're taking on too much now, or you haven't processed, or there's not enough home time and chill out time. Yeah, I kind of get those feelings, and I get told as well. So, yeah.
My wife and I went to see Darren Brown a couple of weeks back,
right?
Which was mind blowing, and he did a bit in the show, and it was kind of dedicated to his dad who passed away, and he had a few quotes of things that people have said, like at the end of their life on their deathbed, about what they wish they'd done through their life, and it was always linked to, and clearly he may have selected some of these that fit the narrative that he's looking for, but about taking more risks, spending more time with family, not giving a shit about people and what they think, and it's never, I wish I'd worked more.
No.
But I wonder at what stage you get in your life and go, have I got all this wrong?
I definitely got to some of that point when I was when I was on holiday, It's a really good, the person that jumped in, it's probably a really obvious one, is Steve Jobs, looking at all that he influenced with the people he managed and the creativity and what they brought to the world and how connected they made the world. I'm staying on the positives. And then his kind of moments were family and family time and growth and connectivity and relationships and stuff, But I think that goes back to the self-care. Are there phases in our lives where, we must work more, or we must put a roof over our head? Or is that just linked to the shoulds of different cultures and what they guide you down? Is there something around the Western world and how we operate? Is there something around certain sports and what they expect of us? How do we change some of the narratives and have the courage to be the person that says, I'm done for the day now, and I'm actually not going to have FOMO when I'm not here?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The culture of a club, an organisation, a system, a sport, I think is really interesting. And I was on a course 2 weeks ago, which was really interesting. But those sidebar conversations that you have with people on courses, and some of those are more interesting, I think. And there was 3 lads that were involved in professional football, S&C sports science world, not coaches, and all of them said in different conversations, unprompted, it wasn't a question I'd asked them, but they all said, I can't wait to get out of X. Which I thought was really interesting, and I obviously become curious as to, well, why, what is that? And especially I think 2 of them were working in what I would say is one of the most forward-thinking clubs in the Premier League Football Academy world, but it's interesting that that's their view. I can't wait to get out of it. Wow. And it also makes me sad. It makes me sad for those people that that's something they're having to do that's not or that wouldn't be their choice if they had it. And it kind of makes me sad for the people that work within that system, that lead that system, that can't see that they've got people within it that feel that way, and there's something that they're creating as someone high up the tree that's involved in decision making, that their life must be also consumed by it, that they can't see what other people see, and that becomes their identity, their entire being. But yeah, I found it really interesting that 3 out of the 3 that I had conversations with all said the same thing. And there was another guy who was an S&C who works at university, who used to work in professional football, who said, I was pleased I got out of it. And he now works on a university program. He does a load of work around underrepresented groups and trying to, for example, develop more female personal trainers from underrepresented groups. And he said, like, I love it. And that works for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did find that interesting, that that kind of feeling has gripped people from the environment that they're working in.
That's really profound.
Well, this is news to you and hot off the press, but I have quit my director of football role.
Hot off the press. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And pretty much for that reason.
Okay.
So I work with the coaches on the youth side, and I feel like I add value. They want more and more. It's well received. I get a million questions. They want the support. And the setup with the first team now changed when it changed midway through last year and new group came in. I used the word to the chairman as ostracized, and part of it, I think, was the manager et al. Didn't necessarily know how to work with somebody in a director of football role, and it's the chairman's mate, and there's all of these kind of things that are underpinning it. But I went from adding what I thought was a lot of value around the first team, etc., to having no input whatsoever, no value, and feeling like I have no value doesn't excite me. So I've said to the chairman that I don't think that's the role that I want it to be. I don't want the director of football role, the way it's come because of how it's then been positioned in amongst the way things were working. It's become a youth development officer role, which is fine, but I don't want to travel, an hour in the car, but there and back to go and do that. So today at sports day for my son, I spoke to the guy who leads the step 3 youth side of things at the club in the town, to say, look, I just want to come and help some coaches, and then start to link things together at the club there. And he's like, brilliant, let's meet for coffee tomorrow.
Oh yeah, of course he did. Grab you.
Yeah. So yeah, but that stemmed from that intrinsic feeling of feeling valued, and it's nothing to do with the chairman, because I think I've learned a lot from him. He's good. Like, he's a good people person. He's very thoughtful. And it was nothing to do with that. It's just the way that the first team manager has taken things, has ended up being this way. And interesting, I had lunch with the first team coach who's left, and we were talking about this, and we were talking about the transition period, and we were sharing some reflections on what worked, what didn't work, etc. And I talked about the feeling that I've had over the last few months of the season, from being thoroughly involved to just going to watch games. And he said, and he apologized, and he said, I saw this happening, and he said it challenged my own values, and I didn't say anything about it, and I'm really sorry.
Wow.
So it it was interesting that, and it wasn't about asking for apologies from him or anything like that. It just, is what it is. But yeah, I think, and this is different because it's a voluntary, pretty much role. But I still think you have to have, as a human, that feeling of value that fits the narrative of what you think the role is. But it's hard if it's your full-time job and everyone else is playing into, we work 70 hours a week, it's expected that you do this, as opposed to somebody putting their hand up and being brave and going, like, that's not how it should be done. There's more to life, and in talent pathways, I don't know that always more is better.
Yeah. Wow, I just want to let that sit for a second. That sounds like it was a really tough but well thought through getting to the values, the belonging. Yeah, wow. Thanks for sharing that. So, as per usual, I bloody took us off in a direction, but that is the gold that you got at the end of that. You're welcome. Takes bow left, takes bow.
I've got a load of notes as well for the topic that you just didn't use.
Next week, we still have to do the storytelling episode as well. I'm not going to, don't ask me how I'm doing at the start of episodes. That's what happens. I take us off in a direction. There's so much in there. I feel like I want to, do a summary in it. But I think what you've just finished with there is people checking in with their why, people checking in with their values and where those values came from, so that they understand how they can look at the situation, be it a team they have in front of them, a committee or an organization, a whole region that they're in charge of. And is it still making you happy? If happy was the motivator, what's that intrinsic drive that's putting you where you're at? And how can you find some support to get perspective on things so you don't become, you don't feel like you're stuck somewhere. So yeah, loads.
Summary.
I know people are going to be desperately knowing who your hairdresser is with this new slick Barnett. So we'll leave that on the Twitter page for those who are eager to know.
I'm very zebra, though.
Yeah.
Now, look, I'm morphing into just the animals in the wallpaper.
Love it, looking slick, and the beard is coming on nicely. We'll have a load of beard end followers now coming in. At Coach Convo, that's where we're at. You'll desperately want to know on Twitter all the details about the hair and beard growth, so follow us there. As well, goal from the session, and then coachconversation@gmail.com. We do have some cool topics. The one today that we were going to dive into, hardest moments to manage in coaching. We are going to dive into that thanks to Cody Royal's tweet, and we are going to look at storytelling, which was a couple of episodes ago that we primed that. So join us over the next couple of weeks when we get into those. Have a great week, and take care.
Bye.